So you probably know this, that each of our New Testament Gospels tell the good news of Jesus. The Gospel of Mark skips right over Jesus' younger years and starts in at Jesus' baptism and his ministry. Matthew, Luke, and John each tell their own version of the story of Christ's birth. Matthew spends most of his time on Jesus' Jewish lineage. John tells us in a more philosophical way how Jesus came to be on earth. It takes about 14 verses referring to Jesus as the Word with God in the beginning, and that the Word became flesh and lived among us. I like how Eugene Peterson, the writer of the Message, translates it. He says, "The Word became flesh and moved into our neighborhood." Kind of puts it more into the vernacular of the day. This version's flesh and blood detail highlights the fact that Jesus is the human God, the divine who became human. Luke tells the story with the details that we are familiar with, especially those of us who are visual types. St. Francis of Assisi, who created the first nativity, used Luke's story of a stable and manger with animals and the angels right out of Luke for his nativity scenes. In today's reading of Luke, we are able to deepen our understanding that God was indeed one of us, because Luke tells us more human community life experiences, details how Jesus, before Jesus moves into his adult ministry. In this reading, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus take part in the rituals of their people. 8 days after Jesus is born, Mary and Joseph have him circumcised, and then they establish his name as Jesus. It's a naming ceremony. And then 40 days later, they trek all the way to Jerusalem to the temple for purification. If you're really curious, you can take out your phone now and go to Google Maps and go to Nazareth and then Jerusalem, and you can place the walking, thing, and it will show you how long it will take to walk. I don't know if they walked faster than we do today, but it's a good hike. So, they took that trek to Jerusalem for this purification. Yes, these activities were not only 3 of Moses' laws, but they were rituals that helped to strengthen their culture. We all, probably each of us, participated in rituals this past week, and we know this to be true. In a New York Times article, David Brooks writes, "Rituals provide comfort because they remind us that we are not alone. Billions of people have done this before as part of the timeless passage of life, and so rituals also comfort because they give a defined form to spiritual experiences. They bring meaning to our lives." Like most new parents, perhaps especially first-time parents, Mary and Joseph are very excited, but they are also very exhausted. And lots of questions. Do you remember, being with someone who had their first child or having your own first child? You looked and went, what am I going to do now? These rituals would have helped them feel their community's support. The circumcision, the name establishing, and the purification ceremony were occasions that brought the community together, celebrating this infant's life and the forming of a new family. In addition, while affirming their connection with their community in the present, their acts helped establish a connection to their ancestors of the past. And although rituals tend to contain the same actions and methods year after year, and for us, Sunday after Sunday, there is often an element of surprise, like we saw in the naming ceremony for John, Elizabeth and Zachariah's son. During baby Jesus' purification ceremony, he receives a special blessing from very old, revered prophets, Simeon and Anna. Through their blessing, Mary and Joseph are now connected to those in the future. These rituals, including the blessing, help Mary and Joseph internalize the fullness of their son's calling, and I imagine gave them solace when times got tough. David Brooks suggests that we in the United States need more rituals, that we are so hungry for rituals that when we come upon one of the very few ones, like weddings, we tend to overload them and turn them into expensive, bloated versions of ourselves. And between these lavish exceptions, daily life then just goes unstructured. Moments passing by without us even being aware of them. We don't mark or honor threshold moments. So this means we don't do transitions very well. As I'm telling you this, I'm remembering how on my first week in Japan, how it seemed that every company would honor the beginning of every day together by going out into the courtyard and doing their exercises together, little mini yoga type thing. It brought them together as a people, but it also helped them mark their day. Rituals and ceremonies are needed to honor what will be taking place and what has taken place. And the sequences of actions and ceremonies and rituals actually symbolically walk us through the inner changes of the new stage of life. They help us celebrate the now and to look forward to the future. Remember, little Meadow had her birthday last year. She's all excited. Those cakes and those candles remind us not only the birthday girl or the birthday boy or man or woman that we are now in a new year, but it helps everyone connect and celebrate each other. Baptisms, the naming and the verbally recognizing the blessedness of the child, and then the sprinkling of the water as a symbol of being submersed in God's grace. All these actions connect us to one another in the present, connect us to the past, connect us to our God, and deepen our relationship with God. The congregation, as a Methodist, we include the congregation in this baptism ritual of welcoming and promising to be a spiritual family for this child and their parents. Rituals help us process and embrace our next role in life. During COVID, we stopped many of our rituals. Some of you weren't able to celebrate your family members' graduations, or maybe you weren't able to have a graduation, and there were funerals that were missed. I think this has affected our joy. It turns out that rituals help to spark joy. Along with all the other aspects that we have learned over these weeks that help us be joyful during tough times, rituals play a very important part in our expression of joy. Now, Luke doesn't speak of Mary and Joseph being filled with joy after they left the temple, but given that these rituals involve connection with people like Anna and Simeon, who finally were able to have their prayers answered, I imagine these rituals brought joy to Mary and Joseph. I have heard from many of you how connection is perhaps one of the most important aspects of our lives that help you experience joy. I imagine that Mary and Joseph, on their way back to Nazareth, would have felt a bit more hopeful and experienced joy for the years to come. Social scientists agree. Not only do we feel a deep connection with the greater community when we participate in rituals, but the physical actions, actually getting your body involved in it, the lighting of the candles and the blowing out of the candles, the songs that are sung and the prayers prayed, these deeds are a kind of language, a way of expressing things that are too deep for words. Our bodies, mind, and spirit are involved. So what rituals in the life of the church bring you connection? Which ritual perhaps is your most favorite ritual? Is it gathering as a community of faith to witness a baby's baptism, or welcoming new members, or weddings, or funerals, or our Ash Wednesday prayer stations? The practice of Lent? The devotions that you read each morning during Lent? Or is it Holy Week, Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday? Maybe it's praying the Lord's Prayer together, or experiencing Holy Communion as a congregation. One of my favorite rituals occurs at annual conference. It's the passing of the mantle ritual. A representative of the year's retiring class of clergy symbolically hands over the role of leadership by passing a shawl upon the shoulders of a clergy person who represents the incoming class to be ordained. This mirrors our ancestors way back, Elijah passing the mantle onto Elisha. And so we are connected with our past, our present, and our future. Over the years, we as a church and as a people have needed to let go of some of these rituals. But maybe it's time to add a few new ones. Maybe we each need to actually consider personal rituals that you do at home, or rituals that you do with friends or your small group. So I encourage you to think about that, even today being the last day of the year. Apparently, there were about 618 different rituals during Jesus' time. People knew how to mark their days and their transitions. Rituals help us to let go of the heaviness around us and within, and to be present in our moments. As I said, it's the last day of the year, and some of you have been reflecting on the past year, the ups and the downs of life, noting where you experienced God's grace, noting the people who came to be the hands and feet of Jesus over these 365 days. So prayerfully consider what rituals you need to deepen in the coming year, and discern one or two that you may wish to add. What days need to be marked or honored in your life? Even those little ones we sometimes rush through, and yet how can we honor them? Be open, my friends, then, to surprises that will occur as you experience these human experiences, celebrations, rituals always have a hint of the mystical and the sacred. Look for that. Note it. Hold it. Honor it. Be grateful for it. And allow these grace-filled times to spark joy. Amen.